So I'm here to discuss with you briefly and outline the goals and visions of one of the key themes of Nexus this year, which is human trafficking and modern slavery. So the Nexus Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery Working Group began as an effort on behalf of the Nexus New York group to engage members in tackling a real-world issue as a network, really for the first time. So we want to allow Nexus members not only an opportunity to talk and have a great time together, but to act on something that affects us all. So following a dinner at the Mandarin Soho Hotel, myself and my co-chair Diana Mao, who's standing in the back, Diana, and later our co-chair Patrick Gage, who's up here in the front, who we met at the White House. Woo! Yeah, we met at the White House Summit. We joined forces to lead the Nexus effort to eradicate modern slavery and human trafficking in the world. So since May, we've been hosting bi-weekly phone calls and webinars to educate ourselves and the community on the topic in preparation for this week, and it has been illuminating and inspiring, to say the very, very least. And now we're ready to bring this movement to the wider Nexus network and open it up for you, have you engage us, and begin to foster the real tangible change that we've been talking about for the past few months. So the working group has the exclusive goal of exploring the concept of modern slavery and human trafficking in an effort to leverage the unique skills, talents, and access of the Nexus membership in order to change domestic and international policy, promote partnerships among civil society and governments, and explore options for social impact investments in this space, as well as to end the plight of slaves and human trafficking victims around the world. So we define human trafficking according to the State Department definition, we define modern slavery according to the State Department definition, which is a crime which includes forced and bonded labor, migrant labor, debt bondage, sex or human trafficking, involuntary domestic servitude, and child soldiering. Human trafficking, or the trafficking in persons, is when someone obtains or holds a person in compelled service. According to the United Nations, human trafficking is a form of modern slavery that subjects children, men, and women to force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of commercial sexual exploitation or forced labor. So our mission statement at the working group is to mobilize resources and individuals like yourself to invest in high-impact solutions that will address the root causes of human trafficking and combat modern-day slavery. Our goals are threefold. 1, help advance the mission of organizations combating trafficking and modern-day slavery. 2, inspire next-generation donors and millennial activists to combat trafficking and modern-day slavery. And 3, bridge knowledge gaps, silos, and lack of resources with communities of dialogue and wealth regarding human trafficking and modern slavery. So, briefly, over the next 3 days, we'll be hosting a series of panels with some of the top leaders, activists, and visionaries in this space, 3 of which I have up here with me today. So right after the plenary, my co-chair Diana Mao will be hosting a conversation on NGOs leading in this space with Ben Skinner from Tao Investments, as well as representatives for the International Justice Mission and the State Department, as well as our sponsor, Geneva Global, the working group's original sponsor. Later today, Patrick will represent the Carlson family on how the corporate world can combat trafficking, featuring, among others, Justin Dillon from Made in a Free World, the creator of the Slavery Footprint application, which we encourage you all to log on and try at slaveryfootprint.org. Later Friday, Patrick will also lead a conversation on actress Eva Longoria's film Food Chains, which highlights the role of modern slavery in agriculture and food supply chains. And most importantly, on Friday at 11:30, we will host a 2-hour lunch and workshop exploring how we can address the issue of modern slavery and human trafficking. The goal of this workshop is very important. We want to identify leaders that want to take on a role within our working group, and we want to compile a list of reasonable goals that we can accomplish over the next 12 months. So if at any time during the summit, whether or not you can attend our sessions, please feel free to reach out to Diana, Patrick, or myself, and we'll be happy to sign you up and get you working, because there's plenty of work to be done. If you want to just learn more about the issue, we're happy to put you on our listserv. We're happy to add you to our private Facebook page. And finally, we will be live tweeting updates, information about the Nexus Working Group during the entire summit. Our Twitter handle is NexusHTMS, as one word. It's NexusHTMS. So please follow us on Twitter. But we are running a campaign during the summit, and the campaign is very simple. We ask you to make a sign that says, "End slavery now. We are Nexus." And tweet us a selfie of yourself, your friends, your guest speakers, holding up this sign. We'll retweet it. We're going to compile all the pictures and do something really cool with it at the end of Summit. So Oh, finally, the last thing I'm supposed to mention is we did compile a report. Patrick, myself, and Diana are walking around with plenty of copies. This is a report we've spent the past 3 months putting together. We hope you'll take a moment to read it. It tells you everything that you should know about human trafficking and everything that you can do about human trafficking, from the very simple to the very complex steps. So, without further ado, because I've spoken quite enough, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for this plenary session. Kayla Brochu, did I say it right? Brochu, is a human trafficking expert from the philanthropic impact organization Geneva Global, who were the original sponsors of the working group, which we are very grateful for. Thank you for that. Shandra Woworuntu is a survivor of human trafficking, and she will share with us her harrowing tale of faith and fortitude. And finally, my dear friend and colleague, Grono, from the Freedom Fund, will be talking about his work at the Freedom Fund, which was launched by the Clinton Initiative in 2013. So I would love if you would join me in a huge round of applause for our guest speakers here today. Shandra, I think you're starting.
It is an honor to be here at Nexus, because you are Nexus. It is my pleasure to share about how I can sit here, stay in the United States. This story is not only story, but this is a cause. Can happen to anybody, not only people who live in poverty. Every year, about 17,000 foreign people came to the United States to be trafficked and exploited. This is on the United States. How about in other countries? How about people from United States itself? Million. And I was one of them. I was a victim, and now I'm survived. I was working in one of the biggest banks in Indonesia as a financial analyst. I was a treasury manager of the bank. So you can imagine, I was well educated. I was living a wealthy life, have a wealthy family. But because of the political turbulence fell out, I had to seek an employment to United States. Because I was thinking, United States is full with goodness. It is an American dream that everybody have it. So I went to employment agency, paid $3,000 with a hope, get $3,000 a month plus tips. After 6 months, I'll back to Indonesia to raise my daughter. The fact I was kidnapped. The people who were supposed to send me to Chicago took me to the darkness. I was forced into underground sex business industry in New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, brothel, hotel, casino, also on the road. I didn't deserve, and nobody deserved. My freedom taken. And I believe none of you deserve to be enslaved. Can be happen to anyone, to your sister, to your family. So, I tried to survive. No food. With the gun control, I have to serve whoever come to purchase my body. And my trafficker said, I still have to pay $30,000 for the job that I never deserve. I had to serve 300 customers to be free. This is only me. How about another girls? How about another man? I was trafficked with multiple traffickers, 5 different nationalities who didn't speak English. And my English was broken too, so it was hard to communicate. But I I keep faith. I keep my faith because I hope one day I will see the light. I will be free like you, like me now. I jumped out from the small bathroom window, but I caught by another trafficker. And I escaped for the second time. It was hard to seek help. I was homeless. I slept in the park. I slept at 42nd Street in the Times Square. I hope someone listened to me. I hope someone see me. None of them cared. Until one day, I met someone that sent me to FBI. I was connected to FBI, and I collaborate with NYPD, and we will prosecute my trafficker, and they stay in the jail. My survival is not easy, so lesson learned. We need to empower survivor because none of us, even the government, don't have specific, even international, don't have specific tools to help them. Only some of the organizations who work in this issue, example, NOMI Network or one of the baking shop in South Carolina. So when I learned about something, I established Mentari to empower survivors in New York City and Los Angeles with the hoping I can help them to get back on their feet. My voice as a survivor heard in White House, in the government, in the international faith community, and now my voice is here. So this is not one-time event here in Nexus. It is a movement. We need to collaborate our work. We need to support Melissa, Patrick, and Diana because our work is not done yet. It is continue. I am the cause, and you are Nexus is a part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Shandra. Thank you so much. That was really good.
Lucky me, I get to follow that. So my name is Kayla. Is it coming up? My name is Kayla Brochu, as MJ said, and I've spent over a decade working on anti-trafficking, first as a federal prosecutor and then here at the UN, and more recently working on very creative and private sector solutions to anti-trafficking for Geneva Global. And I've been asked in 5 minutes or less to explain what human trafficking is. And there's actually, like, you can't see it, but there's a big red monitor that's sort of counting down the seconds. But really, it's not as hard as it seems to describe what human trafficking is in a short amount of time, because you all already know what human trafficking is. In essence, it's the same slavery that you read about in history books. It's just coming back in more modern incarnations. So this modern slavery that we call human trafficking, or sometimes call human trafficking, is, as MJ said, sort of just technically defined as the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel somebody else's labor or to compel the exploitation of their body. It boils down to the trade of human beings. And the most common forms, sadly, we've just heard Shandra's story of commercial sex trafficking. There's labor trafficking, and that happens in a variety of settings: mines, factories, farms, restaurants, strip clubs, on the streets. There's household or domestic servitude. And in some parts of the world, there's forced marriage, child soldiering, and the grotesque trade of human tissue and human body parts. And the part that sometimes is confusing for people is that when we say human trafficking, people assume, understandably, that we are talking about people who are crossing borders. And it is the case that human trafficking often does involve migration, smuggling, whether it's legal or illegal, but it doesn't have to. And in fact, in so many cases, even here in the United States, we see the trafficking of human beings in the victim's own country. The last part that's essential to understand about just what human trafficking is that it's illegal in every country in the world. So compared to 400 years ago, when slaveholders could just brazenly go out and capture slaves and chain them up like animals, modern day human traffickers have to be more inventive. In addition to using physical force and constraints and violence, they use more clever means. They use coercion, threats, humiliation, debt bondage, shame, all to gain and maintain complete control over another person or other people. And I think I usually stop here just to make clear that what I'm talking about is real slavery. It's not a bad boss, not a crummy work situation, not even a dysfunctional relationship. What we're talking about are situations where people cannot get out. They cannot walk away. And somebody else has complete control over their lives and their bodies. They decide what they will do, when they will do it, when they will eat, if they will get paid, whether they will get to keep their money, who they can talk to, what they can say, when they sleep, when they wake, and most importantly, whether they can ever leave. So it's 2014, and we still see situations where in Indonesia, for example, young women are put on auction blocks and sold off as maids in the Middle East. We see Burmese migrants working 20 hours a day on Thai fishing vessels. And sometimes they're at sea for years. And there's no negotiation of terms and salary. If you complain, you just get thrown overboard. When we talk about modern day slavery and human trafficking, we're literally talking about situations where women and even little girls, little boys are locked in brothels and are sexually abused by dozens of people every single day. That is what human trafficking is. And for 30 million people around the world, that's just life. There's no liberty, there's no pursuit of happiness, and there's really no hope for a better or a different future. 3 minutes down, and I hope I suspect I've probably depressed everybody in the room. So I'll use my last bit of time to try to share some good news. In the past 15 years of the modern slavery movement, there's been such extraordinary progress. There are literally thousands of activists all over the world who are coming up with ever more effective, creative, and exciting solutions to rescue people, as Shandra was rescued, to help them restore their lives, and to protect the next generation from the same fate by eradicating slavery once and for all. So these are the kinds of solutions and the kinds of things we'll be talking about in the breakout sessions for the next few days. And I invite any and all of you to join us, to share your brilliance, your wisdom, your creativity, your compassion, so that we can look back a few years from now and say, yeah, that nexus effect, it enabled us to come up with such amazing new ideas, better ideas, so that there's more progress, more liberation, and more joy among millions of people around the world. 30 seconds to spare. Thank you.
So So I suspect that many of you sitting here, and you've heard Shandra's, just horrendous tales of abuse and Kayla's wonderful overview of just all the forms that modern slavery takes, and you're wondering, can we really end modern slavery? It's been with us for thousands of years, 30 million people enslaved. I'll give you another number, $150 billion in profits every year from slavery. 150 billion. That's an ILO, International Labour Organization statistic. That's 10 times the profit of the global airline industry last year. So it's a fair enough question to ask, can we end modern slavery? But the answer is a resounding yes. Right? And here's 4 reasons why. Slavery is illegal everywhere. Right? It's illegal under international law. It's illegal in every country in the world. Slavery is morally abhorrent. There's no argument about the rights or wrongs of slavery. It's not like drugs and arguments about prohibition or legalization or whatever. Slavery is wrong, and it's accepted everywhere as being wrong. And while 30 million people is 30 million too many, it's probably a smaller number of people in slavery than ever has been enslaved before as a percentage of the world's population. Right? And then finally, governments and businesses are slowly, and often very, very reluctantly, but slowly looking for solutions. And it's our role to help provide those sort of solutions. We need to build a new abolitionist movement. We need to be the generation that can end modern slavery, and we can absolutely do it. We can make governments take notice of this. We can make businesses take notice. We can identify the solutions. We need to identify the solutions that work, and we need to empower survivors. That's all key. My organisation, the Freedom Fund, has been set up specifically to try and achieve these objectives. 3 of the biggest philanthropists in the anti-slavery space decided it was time to pool resources. So they all put in $10 million over 5 years to start identifying the solutions that work and to start scaling them up. And they're bringing an investment approach to this problem. Right? It's a hard-headed investment approach. We identify the 20 countries. 20 countries are home to 85% of the world's slaves. So we're going to focus on those countries, and we're going to go into those countries and identify the regions and industries that have the highest percentage of slavery. We want to target our resources so that they have the maximum impact. We work with local partners on the ground. These are the people who know what slavery is like. The local partners, they know the victims, they know the traffickers, they know the crooked cops, they know the straight cops, they know the local officials, right? And we go and work with them. And what does that mean? I was out in Varanasi in India earlier this year and met one of our partners, Guria, and they introduced me to a young woman, Maya, who was 15 years old. She's from a lower caste. She's a Dalit in her community. She'd been kidnapped by someone she knew in the community. She'd been raped. She'd been sold off up the stream into a brothel in Mumbai. And she was actually fortunate. She was fortunate because this organisation that we work with, Guria, had very quickly identified where she was and worked with partners in Mumbai to bring her out of slavery. And she had the courage to go to the police because she knew a trafficker to file a complaint. So you think, okay, well, here we might at least see some justice be done. But of course, that's not the way it works. The trafficker was part of the power elite in her community, a higher caste, in cahoots with the police. The police weren't interested in hearing from her or her father. In fact, they started harassing the father. The father had to be put in a safe house. They had to be provided with alternate livelihoods. Our organisation helped hire a lawyer so they could file a complaint against the person she knew had trafficked her into slavery. But what I like about this organisation, it doesn't stop there. It documents all of these cases, and it took a case to the Supreme Court in India to get an order against the police. And this is the process that we need to kind of build on and amplify. We need to identify the local solutions. We need to attack the business case for slavery. It's a massively profitable business, so we have to treat it as a business that can be attacked. We need to ensure that there's enforcement. These laws exist, they're not being enforced. So there's a gap between the norms and the enforcement. So we have to work on that, right? And we have to build a community that works together because, of course, we're all far, far more powerful when we work together. So that's our objective, and I think it's something that you can all help us with, right? You can be part of this modern abolitionist community. We can be the generation that ends slavery. 30 million is a lot of people, but it's a defined problem. We can attack it, we can undermine it. You are all influential, you all know people, you're all connected through your business contacts. Where you have a connection with your business, make sure your business look at their supply chains and their policies. It's not a big ask, this is good business. Right? Just ask the companies that are now being held to account because there's slavery in the seafood supply chains or slavery in conflict minerals. Right? Businesses, foresightful businesses, need to start paying attention. You all have political contacts. This is not a hard issue to raise with your political contacts. I was on the Capitol a couple of days ago, right? There's one issue in America that's bipartisan, it's tackling slavery. Right? So, you know, we can make a difference on all of this, and we need more resources. Right? There is a movement that is growing, there is a momentum, it is woefully under-resourced. The kind of momentum and the attention has way outgrown the resources. So you can help us mobilize the resources that we need. You can support organizations like the Freedom Fund. You can support, you're going to meet a whole bunch of organizations here. Verite, Polaris, Made in the Free World, NOMI, IJM. Go to the breakout sessions, learn the magnificent work that they're doing and the ways that it can be scaled up. And then we can ensure that millions don't suffer and go through some of the horrendous abuses that Shandra has survived, that millions others don't suffer the fate that Maya has survived. You know, and the message I want to leave you with is that working together, we can be the generation that ends modern slavery. So thank you very much.
Those of you that know me. No, you can hear me? Fantastic, wonderful. So first of all, it's a huge life honor to be up here, to be asked to speak by my co-chairs today, and an even larger honor to share the stage with people like this, because my work in this space doesn't even compare to what they've done. So I've been asked to do another huge honor today, which has completely blown my mind. And I'm really quite overwhelmed by this, because it's not every day that you get to introduce a woman of your stature, and I'm very excited to do so. So we have a fourth guest with us, and Ms. Simone Monasebian, yes, is currently the UNODC representative and chief of the New York office of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, which is tasked, as probably most of you know, with promoting justice globally. Prior to her appointment with UNODC, she served as the principal defender of the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Before joining the Special Court, she was a trial attorney with the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, the Office of the Prosecutor, where she prosecuted war criminals in complex multi-defendant cases pursuant to UN Security Council Resolution 955 of 1994. She was one of the prosecutors responsible for the December 2003 landmark convictions of the 3 media executives who fanned the flames of genocide in their newspaper and radio stations. This case has raised important principles concerning the role of the media, which have not been addressed at the level of international criminal justice since the Nuremberg trials. Ms. Monasebian has also served as Court TV's on-air legal analyst for international criminal trials and is an adjunct professor of international criminal law and human trafficking at the law school at Seton Hall, at Seton Hall's Law School, Cairo and Zanzibar programs. So without further ado, I have the distinct pleasure and honor to turn the floor over to you.
It's my honor to be here with all of you today, and I'm so heartened by the incredible turnout that you've brought here. I don't know if any of you know what next Wednesday is, July 30th? Okay, that's great. I wish as many people in the UN knew what all of you know. What are we doing in the UN? First of all, why is the UN Office on Drugs and Crime the agency charged with dealing with human trafficking as opposed to some other UN agency? You know, most of the UN agencies are, of course, based in New York. Some are based in Nairobi, like the UN Environment Program, the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights in Geneva. You know these things, you're sophisticated people. We're based in Vienna, and I head up the office here in New York. Well, UNODC is the guardian of the UN Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons, which is the convention, the internationally agreed to convention that defines what human trafficking is. And you heard from our very learned panelists what the definition is. It's also that instrument that talks about how we have to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking, and it requires member states in the UN to not only undertake a number of efforts, but to partner with all of you in civil society so that we're strong, because absent working with you, we're never going to get where we need to go. So we have an international day, we have UNODC's every 2 years comes out with a report on human trafficking. What is the state of human trafficking? And that will come out in December. The first one came out December 2013. And then we have something called the UN Global Plan of Action to Combat Trafficking in Persons, which was adopted by the General Assembly in 2010. And it was that General Assembly resolution that talked about having this report every 2 years so that we know what the data really is, so that we have a report from the UN that's not from one country or one group of countries, but is actually representing all 193 member states. And talks about what we need to do in terms of protection, how we can assist survivors like Shandra. You know, only 1 out of 100 victims of human trafficking is ever rescued. What do we do about those who we are able to bring out of human trafficking? Well, a lot of times we only intermittently help them, and then they are very likely to be re-trafficked because the type of assistance that's being provided is not long-term. But what this Global Plan of Action has done is come up with a trust fund for victims of human trafficking, and that trust fund provides legal and housing and work training, and also lawyers who can sue some of the traffickers, and medical assistance to these survivors. So what can all of you do on July 30th? Well, you can join our Blue Heart, UNODC's Blue Heart campaign in support of victims of trafficking, in support of the survivors, and you can go to www.unodc.org to find out more about the trust fund. We love to partner with all of you on various initiatives to support that trust fund. And I think another thing that we also need to work on together is demanding that, as you said, Nick, it's not just good enough that all these countries have signed on to these laws and that we have the standards and norms. Really, we're past the awareness raising point here. We can talk about awareness because we have to, but it's not about awareness anymore. I've been doing this 9 years. You've been doing this, many of you, longer than me, and we all know what the problem is, okay? And the same thing with genocide. Everybody knows that this is going on. It's not a matter that we didn't know and never again. We didn't know this time. Everybody knows. How do we do something about it? The fact that while 83% of the countries now have a law criminalizing human trafficking, which is huge progress. 5 years ago, we couldn't say that. And the UN and civil society have worked together to ensure that. Well, very, very few countries ever had even one conviction of this crime. 16%. We know that this happens in every country. We know that this happens everywhere. So I would just like to leave you with this. We stand ready to partner with all of you and look at your good ideas. We've learned more from the survivors than we've learned from anybody else. And until we really listen to Shandra, not just, out of politeness and a sense of inclusiveness to bring survivors here, which is very important, but also to include them in expert groups that we have when we're drafting laws, to include them in reviews of our work. Because the best intelligence we have is from persons like Shandra, and I commend you on your bravery, and it's an honor to be here with you today. I thank the organizers, Geneva Global, Nexus, and the very important UN Office of Partnership, which is always linking different people in the UN to all of you in civil society, and I'm grateful to all of you for your efforts.
There we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today. For those of you, I just want to reiterate, if you grab one of the packets, the conference packets, reports that we've put together that Patrick and Diana have, the last page is actually the official document from the UN, which explains what exactly July 30th is, which is the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, thanks to the GA, which recently passed a resolution, and it will explain to you in detail how you can get involved on that day, which really implies tweeting a selfie with a heart and the hashtag #IGiveHope. So thank you so much. Tweet us at us at Nexus HTMS, a selfie of you holding an End Slavery Now sign. And thank you again to my panelists. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is yours.